accept the tale of three brothers who met death on a lonely road and received three powerful objects, but whether the items were gifts or inventions has always been up for debate. But what if we have been asking the wrong question? What if it's not, did the Peverells make the Deathly Hallows, but if the brothers themselves existed at all? Hey, brother! Look, right away I know what you guys are gonna say. Ignotus' grave is in the graveyard at Godric's Hollow, but not to worry, I'll get there. In the meantime, I'm not sure there are two things that I am more fascinated with within the wizarding world than one, magical artifacts, and two, the founders of Hogwarts. And fittingly, these two things seem to intertwine quite often. So much so, in fact, that they all go on to be massive plot elements as the story ultimately unfolds, with Voldemort having made 3 of the 4 founders' objects into Horcruxes: Slytherin's locket, Ravenclaw's diadem, and of course, Hufflepuff's cup. And then there's Gryffindor's relic to round off the bunch: the sword, which fittingly is responsible for destroying, rather poetically, I might add, Slytherin's locket. And also the ring! And Nagini, but more on that later. Or, you know what? Maybe not later. Maybe just right now, because if there are any more iconic relics in the entire series than those of the founders, then it must be those of the 3 brothers, aka the Deathly Hallows. The Elder Wand, Resurrection Stone, and Invisibility Cloak.
My body's gone!
Yeah, it is, Harry. Yeah, it is. The creation of these is something that we've stewed on for years and years here at SCB. Partially because, it's fun, and partially because we've spent years making Harry Potter theories, and at this point, I am convinced there is something about these objects that is just hiding in plain sight. An all too important detail that ties their inclusion and importance to the story even tighter. And I think I may have found it. A secret that takes the Hallows so far beyond the aged pages of Tales of Beedle the Bard and makes them central to the key conflict, Harry versus Voldemort. And it all started exactly 1,000 years ago. Today we are going to explain what the Hogwarts founders had to do with the creation of the Deathly Hallows. Trivia question: when does the Battle of Hogwarts take place? If you said May 2nd, 1998, congratulations, you're now empowered to go buy yourself exactly 1 cookie. Enjoy. Second trivia question: when was Hogwarts founded? Do you know? Aha! You followed into my trap.
Okay, sorry.
The answer is we don't really know. Estimates seem to suggest late 10th century, specifying further that it's about the year 990, but the exact year is unknown. And you may see where I'm heading here, but that timing is awfully suspicious because it happens to be almost exactly 1,000 years prior to Harry and Voldemort's fateful duel in the wreckage of Hogwarts' Great Hall. And 1,000 years feels like such a storybook length of time. The 1,000-Year War, the Millennium Curse maybe, especially when you consider that the most significant rift in the founding of Hogwarts is the broken friendship between Godric Gryffindor and Salazar Slytherin. And then how the final duel between Harry and Voldemort absolutely echo these two founders' original feud, Harry being the true Gryffindor and Voldemort being the actual heir of Slytherin. Harry's red Expelliarmus spell combating Voldemort's green Avada Kedavra. Even their eye color act as mirrors of the oncoming spells, and both literally possess a bit of each other within themselves. Harry forever contained a piece of Voldemort's soul, and Voldemort who used Harry's own blood to resurrect his physical form. But then it got me thinking a bit further. We know that Voldemort is the true heir of Slytherin. He can, of course, speak to snakes, but Voldemort's maternal family also possessed his last remaining artifact, the Locket of Slytherin. But that's not the only artifact Marvolo Gaunt had clung to throughout the years. There was also the Peverell Ring, aka the Resurrection Stone. Meanwhile, Harry is heavily tied to Godric, not just by sorting, but also by birthplace. Harry is from the town of Godric's Hollow, which is named after Gryffindor himself.
This is where I was born. I'm not returning as someone else.
And Harry is the descendant of Ignotus Peverell, making him the true owner of the invisibility cloak by birthright. And this is what first turned me on to this idea. You can almost neatly sort the Resurrection Stone, Locket, Voldemort, and Salazar Slytherin into one column. And then Harry, Godric's Hollow, the Sword of Gryffindor, and Invisibility Cloak into the other. Here's where I need you to stick with me for a moment, because that poses a very interesting question. What if Salazar and Godric are 2 of the brothers? Not brothers themselves, but what if Cadmus, the second brother, and Ignotus, the third brother, are code names, disguising their true identities? We know it's a seemingly common practice amongst wizards, at least the ones that we've met. When we say Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, we know that these are actually Remus, Peter, Sirius, and James. The Half-Blood Prince isn't some wizarding royalty, it's Snape's play on his mother's surname. And Voldemort isn't the true identity of Tom Riddle, but after all, there are a lot of Toms. Sorry to all of you Toms out there in the world, it's not you, it's him.
Ah, Mr. Potter.
But what I'm saying is that Godric is Ignotus, Salazar is Cadmus. The 1,000-year war starts with them and their rift shortly after creating Hogwarts in the year 998, and conclude exactly 1,000 years later when their two descendants settle matters in 1998 in the very hall that these ancient wizards once crafted. The birthplace of the original feud, if you will. I mean, it's pretty cool, right?
Right!
But I want to take a quick pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Shopify. Okay, so peek behind the curtain for a moment. Here at SuperCarlinBrothers, it takes a village. We have two wonderful editors, an office manager who runs logistics, and then Jay and myself. And the honest truth is that we all have very different skills that we bring to the table to keep the ship afloat. For example, I don't know how to use Photoshop. There, I said it. It's on the internet forever. But when it came to opening Carlin Brothers Mercantile, our own merch store, we were all a little bit in the dark. But that's where Shopify steps in as our resident e-commerce expert and business partner. And what's glorious about Shopify is that it's perfect if you're just starting out. I think day one for us, we featured like 6 total SKUs, our signature coffee, a t-shirt, and a couple of accessories. But Shopify is also designed to grow with you. So while it's perfect for just kicking off, it can also withstand all of the growth that you're headed towards on the horizon. So regardless if you're already in motion or just getting started, if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. So turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/SCB. Again, go to shopify.com/SCB. Last time for safety, shopify.com/SCB. Link in the description down below. Now back to the video. But wait, I hear you saying that only accounts for 2 of the 3 Hallows. You're falling one short here in a rather meaningful way. Who is the true identity of the first brother who receives the Elder Wand? Who is Antioch? Could it be Rowena? Helga? I mean, I know it feels oddly unsatisfying for only 3 of the 4 founders to be involved, doesn't it? And I totally agree. And the kind of good news here is that it's not the case. I don't think that Rowena or Helga played any part in this particular portion of wizarding history. The kind of bad news, however, is that it kind of goes the other way. 3 Hallows and only 2 inventors, Godric and Salazar. But then how does that work? Swimmingly, actually. Thanks for asking. What we have is 2 powerful wizards, 2 powerful objects, and not 1 powerful Elder Wand, but 2 powerful wands. And I'm sure right away what you're thinking is like, power-hungry Slytherin would be the most likely candidate to carry the Elder Wand, right? Like it feels right up his alley. And yet, we know it's not, because we actually know a lot about Salazar Slytherin's wand. His wand, like his locket, was passed down generation to generation until it ended up in the hands of Gormlaith Gaunt. Gormlaith, if you don't remember your Ilvermorny history, you'd be forgiven for that, was the aunt of Isolde's sire, the woman who stole the wand, fled to America, and later founded Ilvermorny, the American School of Wizardry. Where my Thunderbirds at, right? I see you. Salazar's wand is of particular importance within this portion of the lore because Isolde ultimately buries it outside the grounds of Ilvermorny School, where it grows into a snakewood tree that cannot be pruned but whose leaves contain medicinal properties. And thanks to this particular piece of the narrative, we know that Salazar's wand was not elder wood with a thestral hair core, which is the elder wand, but instead snakewood with a basilisk horn core. And as such, the obvious conclusion there, if all else is correct, would be that the Elder Wand must have belonged to Godric Gryffindor. Which also cracks an interesting, what does mastery of the Elder Wand really mean, door for us to consider. Harry says, "You still don't get it, Riddle, do you? Possessing the wand isn't enough. Holding it, using it, doesn't make it really yours. Didn't you listen to Ollivander? The wand chooses the wizard." This is how he states his argument that Draco was in fact the true owner and Harry took his wand and blah, blah, blah. You know we don't like that explanation. But one, if this is true, it means that in the final battle, Voldemort is using Gryffindor's wand and Harry is using a Slytherin's wand because he's holding Draco's, which offers even more symmetry to the fight. And then 2, if the Elder Wand once belonged to Godric, then maybe its extraordinary powers can only be truly manifested when the wielder is committing an act of bravery. An explanation that I don't wholly hate, since it's supposed to be this unbeatable wand that is otherwise constantly changing hands, which has always been a paradox in itself. And if you even compare that to Slytherin's own artifacts, we'll see that Slytherin's wand and his locket both respond to Parseltongue. So for a artifact from Gryffindor to respond to bravery, his key trait, it would kind of fit. And it's also exactly how the Sword of Gryffindor works. It will present itself to a worthy Gryffindor who is in need. But so on the note of the Elder Wand constantly changing hands, it makes it make more sense if everybody who is otherwise seeking it only wants it for more power. That is why they keep losing. Then on the flip side, the two people who we know to have been masters, Harry and Dumbledore, are otherwise the most noble people in the story.
Between you and me, that is saying something.
Harry literally dies for everyone. And I mean, I will let you argue about Dumbledore all day, but the chillin' does kneel to him, so canonically, he's pure of heart, or whatever.
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
He said calmly, so pure, right? So pure. Okay, but then from there, we've got a new interesting detail to look at. Godric has his Elder Wand with the Thestral core. Salazar, the Snakewood Wand, with the Basilisk core. I think if nothing else, we can attribute both of those materials to the grounds of Hogwarts, especially during the late 900s when the Founders would be constructing the school. Thestrals are, of course, notably present in the Forbidden Forest. They live there. As for the Basilisk Horn, you might be thinking Salazar would have snagged it from this. Goodness. But here's where we can dig into the name of Salazar's alias, Cadmus, aka the second brother. The name Cadmus comes from Greek mythology, where he is known for having slain the sacred dragon, which, based on historical depictions, looks exactly like a basilisk. Plume and everything. If Slytherin did the same, then there's your basilisk horn core. But then also in Greek mythology, Cadmus is known for having married a woman, technically a goddess, named Harmonia. And I won't get into all of the nitty-gritty details, but some of them are are you freaking kidding me? Take for example detail number 1. All of the gods attended their wedding, where they are notably and famously gifted a necklace. The necklace, commonly referred to as the Necklace of Harmonia, was famed for bringing misfortune upon all those who wore it. Additionally, we have this. Although no undisputed description of the necklace exists, it is usually described in ancient Greek passages as being beautifully wrought gold and inlaid with various jewels, typically emeralds. I mean, I don't want to reach too far, but that's basically a description of Slytherin's locket. And that feeling of despair that comes from wearing a locket may not even have to do with Voldemort's own protection over his Horcrux. It could be an innate property of the locket.
Oh, do you know what?
What?
The Gaunt family, they've had the locket forever, and their luck has only gone downhill. Right?
Oh!
And that's way before it turns into a Horcrux.
You're right.
Right?
They're living in Swaller.
Exactly.
Hey.
Boom.
Good inclusion. See ya. But not to worry, you guys. We're still not done. There's more. Because aside from marrying Harmonia and killing that dragon/snake, Cadmus has another major key accolade to add to his resume. He is the legendary founder of Thebes, which is one of the oldest continuously occupied cities in the world. And he is later, wait for it, expelled from the very city he founded. Sound familiar? Hogwarts!
He decided to leave the school.
Sorry, I coughed there. I said Hogwarts. And upon expulsion, Cadmus sought refuge with Harmonia in a place called Illyria. To which you might be like, wait, where? But here's where. The ancient Greeks initially used the term Illyris to define approximately the area of northern and central Albania. Albania, as in where Voldemort retreats after the spell backfires at Godric's Hollow. The otherwise so hard to explain, bizarrely faraway place Quirrell would ultimately find him in his mist-like form, and again, where he goes after his and Quirrell's defeat, and when he meets Nagini! You know, the woman who morphed into a snake, the closest Voldemort has towards caring towards any living thing. That one. And what came of Cadmus and Harmonia once they reached Albania? According to the legend, one day Cadmus remarked that if the gods were so enamored of the life of a serpent, he might as well wish that life for himself. Immediately, he began to grow scales and change in form. Harmonia, seeing the transformation, stripped herself and begged the gods to share her husband's fate. As she was embraced by the serpent Cadmus in a pool of wine, the gods took pity, granted her request, and transformed her. And from there, the two are sent on to the afterlife. So while the tale of the three brothers suggests that the second brother, Cadmus, who joins his betrothed in death, this makes me think that it may have been the other way around. The point is, Salazar and Cadmus have way too much in common to not be one and the same. Even the discovery of a spouse or lover is vital because we've always known that Slytherin has an heir, but that requires a partner of some kind. But then what about Godric / Ignotus? How does that fit into all this? Is Ignotus some cool character of Greek mythology as well? And the answer is no. Ignotus means unknown, which is a pretty perfect name for someone who created the invisibility cloak. But unknown may have deeper meaning than we give it credit for. Notably because it takes Hermione no time at all to discover Ignotus's gravestone in the graveyard of Godric's Hollow. This makes me think that it was a fairly prominent or central gravesite, easy to spot. And yet, you know whose grave there's no mention of? Godric Gryffindor's, in the graveyard of the town named after him. It seems like that would be like quite the spectacle, right? Like emblazoned with rubies or something. But then there's the question, if I'm suggesting that Ignotus and Godric are one and the same, why would he be buried under an alias? And once again, it's the artifact. In this case, the Sword of Gryffindor. It's kind of wild, isn't it, that a Horcrux is made out of each of the other 3 Founders' relics, and yet Voldemort was never able to lay hands on the sword. Here's my take. Godric thought it too much of a risk to be buried under his own name. Someone might come for the sword, but be buried under Ignotus, and you go unseen. Get it? Unseen? His whole thing is the invisibility cloak? You get it.
My body's gone.
But also, you know who gets buried with the Elder Wand, who we believe belonged to Godric Gryffindor? Dumbledore. You know who opens that grave to steal it? The heir of Slytherin. Do you see what I mean? Do you see the problem? It's there. The thing Godric feared would happen happened just 1,000 years later. Of course, it's the wand, not the sword, but you get it. But then the sword remains buried with Godric for a millennium until a true Gryffindor needs it to kill what? A basilisk. 1,000-year war over? Not quite, but we're getting close. Because the killing of the basilisk, once again, allows us to fold the powers of Gryffindor and Slytherin into one. The symbol of Gryffindor, the sword, is literally infused with the venom of the symbol of Slytherin. This makes it uniquely capable of destroying other Horcruxes, a very vital and important weapon to the story. And yet, the sword doesn't destroy all of the Horcruxes, does it? Just 3. Slytherin's locket, the Gaunt Ring, and Nagini. Of the 7 Horcruxes, these 3 are directly connected to Salazar Slytherin himself, and destroyed by none other than the very weapon of Godric Gryffindor. A weapon that has reunited the 2 friends as a more powerful entity than before. Harry has a bit of Voldemort in him. The sword has a bit of Slytherin in it. Harry was almost put in Slytherin, but put in Gryffindor instead. Together, they are stronger. An act I suspect Gryffindor intended when he chose his new name. Slytherin would have a clear reason to change names after being disgraced and leaving the school. Cadmus Peverell. But why would Godric also choose Peverell as a last name? Because they were best friends, and in death, they were brothers. And finally, the curse of the millennium is over. Okay, fun observation here, especially from like a storytelling perspective, because I think that like Harry being a descendant of Godric Gryffindor when Voldemort is a descendant of Salazar Slytherin almost falls a little flat. It otherwise just feels like a bit too convenient that like, oh, look at that, through all these years, it's finally there. But then it's almost like only if you dig aggressively into the lore and the backstory and the mythology attached to all of the associated characters can you find the truth. And the other detail that I love so much about this was the realization that we're dealing with Hogwarts being founded in the late 900s, and then the ultimate conclusion to the story happening exactly 1,000 years later. This feels like the kind of like storyline that if we had a Founders TV show of some kind or story of some kind, that you could hear legend of the 1,000-year curse. Godric and Salazar kick off the curse. Harry and Voldemort conclude it. But y'all, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you'd like to see a different take on the Sword of Gryffindor and how Voldemort actually did discover it and was going to turn it into a Horcrux, you can check out this video right over here. But otherwise, until next time, bye! Don't forget to eat cheese.